we are getting into a little bit of support staff here. Ironic that he's talking about how much, considering our off-air conversation, how much money from 1890 goes to athletes.
Yeah.
Not everybody does it that way.
No.
Collectives, because technically collectives a nonprofit, right? It's registered as
can't.
Okay.
So I went to it's a business luncheon in Lincoln. It was I was invited by Family Lutheran Services. And it just so happens that Friday, and I talked about it with the gentleman that invited me, was Matt Davidson.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so it was really cool. I think some people thought it was going to be awkward, but it wasn't. He's a total pro, and he said they originally had. This is what was crazy, because remember, the NIL rules are changing like literally by the minute.
Yeah, it's very fluid,
right? And so originally, when they filed as a 501c3, as a nonprofit.
I thought they had. Yeah,
got their paperwork pretty quick. We're ready to go. Then they came back a couple months later. And we're like, no,
can't do that.
Can't designate this entity as nonprofit. So it really kind of put a. You mean this isn't a write-off? No, it's a total giveaway now. Like, you just have to be willing to just have to be willing to give it away. But to have him keep on top of the ever-changing world, and the thing that I like about their approach to it is they're going to do it until somebody tells them they can't, whether it goes in, however it changes. Coach Rule said this a month ago. Whatever happens next year, they'll adjust to that. But for right now, this is what they've got to do.
Yeah.
Right. We want to be here with this team in the Big Ten. We want to be here with this team in the Big Ten. We'll play the game. We'll play any game you want to play. Just tell us the rules.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm even like that with people. Right. Well, you probably more than me. The minute you want to play that way? Fine. So you take it to another level. But like I think that's part of it. And he's a guy, he's 100%. It's so, do you know what my favorite thing about this?
What's that?
This is weird, but it gives me conversation starters, because now it's out there. So it's not like, because I remember the second time I went there, I was with Adam. We went up there on a Sunday with Jay, and it was just on a random. It had to be a year ago. Maybe more. I don't. Yeah, maybe more. And I didn't think he was still going to be there. I was like, yeah. I was like, because that he's telling that it was, hey, just help me get this started.
Yeah.
And I remember Coach Rule. So Sean's doing his own thing. It's like Sunday at 4 something in the off season, but they're there, right? So I kind of mosey on over, and he's back there, and everybody, Adam and Jay stayed with Coach Rule. We were just talking, and he was like, I love it here. I didn't think I would. And he kind of joked, they don't like to spend too much time away from each other. Right. And I remember Coach Rule said something really interesting. He goes, I didn't get into trouble as a head coach until I lost Patton. So and this was so early.
Yeah.
It reminded me of what Sat said about, he goes, every 3 or 4 years, I have to get back close to him.
Yeah.
It's good for me as a person.
Yeah.
And I was like, so there's that angle, then there's this angle. And I'm like, there is definitely legs to this whole camaraderie, common vision thing.
Yeah.
And that's why it never bothered me about the buddy this or the buddy that or the connection, because in big business, which is what this is, you ride with people you trust.
Yes.
And being able to kind of, perhaps my favorite thing is surrounding yourself with people that accentuate your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. But you have to be willing to go there, though.
Well,
because it can make you uncomfortable.
Well,
too.
And you have to be aware of what your weaknesses are.
So that's why I like. What
Dr. Elza said yesterday. he might be the most self-aware person she's ever seen.
I'm not joking. So
Coach Rule,
yes,
might be the most self-aware. And so, like, if you're self-aware enough to say, like, hey, this is where I'm not good.
Do you know what I used to think it was?
What's that?
I was like, oh my gosh, Carolina, he's paranoid.
Yeah.
Nope.
He's just self-awareness.
Self-aware.
He's like, oh, this is where I messed up. This is where I can get better. This is who can help me do that.
She said it better, but I would say to you and our listeners and stuff over this last, I'm like, the chess checkers thing, that's his self-awareness. The discernment, that's self-awareness. He's pitting it against his immediate surroundings and how it vibes with him. That's why he processes information so fast.
If you're more aware than other people, you're going to come off, whether you are or not, and he probably is anyway, but you're going to come off as dramatically smarter than everyone else.
You want to go back to the box in the middle of the floor example?
Yeah. What Dr. Elza say?
How many people would walk over that?
And then what Dr. Elza say, right? She's talking about, like, hey, if there's a speck on a table during a recruiting visit, that can throw off the entire recruiting visit, right? She's talking about how if you don't do, when he was talking about it last week with us, and then Dr. Elza was talking about it, and remind me of this. I know you haven't seen Ted Lasso except for on TikTok, but it reminded me of this quote from Ted Lasso where he says, I'm going to find it here. Sorry.
That's okay.
It says the minute we start doing anything the wrong way is the minute we're one day closer to doing everything, or the minute we stop doing everything the right way is we're one day closer to doing everything the wrong way.
So, and I tell funny stories that just give this credence, right? You come out and there's a pre-practice horn and the clock needs to be right. And it's like, I believe it was, I have to ask Jay Terry again, but I believe it was supposed to be like 8:48.
Like a real specific time.
I think it was 8:48.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't remember what the time was. And Coach Rule, the first thing he said was, hey, where's the sounder? Are we ready? And then it was like, hey, we're getting ready. We're here. And everybody kind of like went to go do their thing. It's just like, okay, I get it. Like their transition in practice or transition from recovery post practice or just the little stuff like that. It just resonates. I remember we had Dr. Woodman does a lot of stuff with our football team. And I remember 2 years ago, maybe 3, we have what's called Wizard Wednesday with Doc Moorbeck. Dr. Woodman was speaking after, and one of our players just kind of got up and addressed the room, the podium, took the podium. He usually always told a joke. It was Cole Haberman, Kate's little brother. And he like just dressed the room down about the locker room. All right, like just was, and it was basically, and he's a tough guy. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. Figure it out. It's the last time we had to talk about the locker room, right? And Dr. Woodman used little things like that in the presentation about doing the little things right. We made light for 4 or 5 years when an AD referenced sloppy travel on a plane or leaving the locker room a mess. But Bo would say, hey, our travel, like take some pride in it. Like Coach Rule, when he says, we don't even know how to travel yet. When we figure out how to travel, we'll be one step closer to winning. Like little things like that. We hear a lot of people say, but just to put the practical application to it is different.
So I've got a question about that because I think there's a fine line between
compelled and obsessed,
understanding the little things matter, and getting lost in the minutia.
Gotcha.
And I want to ask that question to you next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.